We are freshly off the news of one of the most shocking trades in not only NBA history, but professional sports history, as Luka Doncic has been shipped off to the Los Angeles Lakers in a trade built around Anthony Davis to become LeBron James' new running mate. I want to break down how this impacts the entire league and how this has sort of changed my perception on how the Sixers have viewed the Joel Embiid situation. I do believe we are in the midst of a massive change regarding how these top-tier contracts, these top-tier players are viewed in terms of their impact on the salary cap, and do just want to give my thoughts on the trade overall. So let's dive right into things here. I do want to start off with the exact details. So the Dallas Mavericks walking away with Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and the Lakers' 2029 first-round pick. The Lakers get Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris, and the Jazz helping to facilitate the trade there, walking away with Jalen Hood-Schifino, a 2025 Clippers second-round pick, and a Mavericks pick in the same season year. So a lot going on here, to be perfectly honest. As I mentioned right away, this is one of the most shocking trades that I can remember ever. This was a deal where late last night for me, laying in bed, scrolling on my phone, getting ready to fall asleep, and had to click on Shams Charania profile 5 or 6 times just trying to confirm that this is the real thing. If the general reaction from, I would say, most people when reading that for the first time is Shams just got hacked, probably not the best sign as a front office, and I do think that is how the Mavericks should be feeling at this current point. Now, to dive right into things, we know who Luka Doncic is. That this guy averaging 28.1 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 7.8 assists, still just 25 years old, about to turn 26 soon, and that is where this conversation starts and ends for me. From the Lakers in particular, when you have a chance to get a universal top 8 at worst, I frankly think top 5 pretty concretely, but to be a little conservative on the estimate, I would say he is universally viewed as a top 8 player in basketball. When you have a chance to get a guy like that in his prime, you do it 100 times out of 100, even if that means bringing Anthony Davis in to reflect on sending Anthony Davis out and reflect on his production in the midst of an excellent season with the Lakers this year. 25.7 points, 11.9 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 2.1 blocks per game. He is about to turn 32, a guy who clearly the Mavericks trying to lean in more of this defensive identity. Now, to shoot you directly straight, I have no clue why this deal still went down. To me, this is one of the worst trades in NBA history from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. Is it fair to have some legitimate gripes with Luka Doncic? Does he complain to referees too much? Is he a little bit, lazy in the way that he takes care of his body and not having that commitment that really is necessary for a top-tier athlete? Sure, I can live with all that, but you know what he also is? A phenomenal basketball player who took you to the NBA Finals last year. Let's not forget that. Now, from a Lakers perspective here, does it hurt moving on from Anthony Davis a little bit? You guys obviously won a championship with him, for sure. But once again, this is about the next generation of Lakers basketball to me. That this is not about winning this season. And while I've just wrote an article for DraftKings kind of speaking about how much the odds have shifted in favor of the Lakers, I don't see this translating to some immediate repercussions. What this means to me is Luka Doncic is the next face of the Lakers for the next decade. He's going to be hanging up there with the Magic Johnsons, the Kobe Bryants, all these guys that have been the face of the Lakers for an extended period of time. That is what Luka Doncic is walking into. At 25 years old, about to turn 26, we know LeBron James, who's putting up a better fight with Father Time than just about anyone we've ever seen. He eventually does have to hand that baton. And I think one of the failures in the calculation from this Lakers perspective is that Anthony Davis was not quite ready to be that caliber of guy. Is he an excellent basketball player? No doubt about it. Is he a guy who plays winning basketball, can help you compete? Absolutely. But do I believe he can be a 1A on a championship team? I just don't. And I think that is the realization that the Lakers have come through. Luka Doncic is a guy that I believe is in that very short list there. Now, from Dallas's perspective, this is an absolute disaster for me. For starters, if I'm a Mavericks fan, this quote in particular is really firing me up. With Mavericks GM Nico Harrison being asked about the long-term thought process behind trading Luka Doncic, he says, quote, "The future to me is 3-4 years from now. The future 10 years from now, I don't know. They'll probably bury me and Jason Kidd by then, or we bury ourselves." And to add this a little further, he also acknowledged that he did not have any trade discussions with any other team in the NBA. So this was very quickly developing between the Mavericks and Lakers directly. And what was reported about that, or why I think that this should have been open to a bidding war, is if the motivation is just to get rid of Luka Doncic, then maybe get your ultimate return here. And we have a quote here, shout out to Hoops Central here, saying an anonymous NBA executive was asked if he knew Luka Doncic was available and how much he would offer in a potential trade. His response, everything. Yeah, Luka is one of those guys. Now, how this ties in from a Sixers perspective to me, it is very interesting that we have our very own superstar, our very own top 5 NBA player when he is healthy, but a guy with all these same concerns, even more so than both Luka Doncic or Anthony Davis. That's for Davis specifically. He has been healthier than kind of his perception at this point in his career. Dude who played 76 games last year has been available for 42 of the possible 47 in this season. He has been on the floor far more than you would think regarding Davis specifically, but when you're talking about Joel Embiid, that has not been the case. Now, kind of the trend from the NBA perspective for really years now is it's just a finite conclusion that these superstars are going to get their contract. I think this is where these conversations start. From the Lakers' perspective, they got a little bit nervous about giving Anthony Davis this long-term contract that was coming up. He was extension eligible this summer. And for the Mavericks, the exact same conversation. For Luka Doncic specifically, we were talking about a 5-year, $346 million extension. That is a lot of money. And with this new CBA, we're finally starting to see the effects of it. The teams are being less willing to just hand out the contract and deal with it later. Now, granted, this has worked from two separate sides. That from the player's perspective, obviously you want to guarantee your money. That is what these guys are in it for in the large majority. That obviously you want to guarantee and put yourself in the best place to make as much money as possible. The NBA has kind of worked with that and rewarded guys for staying with franchises. That you get a little bit more money when you are homegrown, when you're able to sign with that. And why this has worked in two ways is with the player accepting that, then it allows the franchise to have control. So say, for example, I'll use Jimmy Butler here. Jimmy Butler, a guy who's clearly unhappy, he has that player option for next year for $52 million. Is he going to get $52 million on the open market? I think no at this point, particularly in regards to what is currently going down. So does it make sense for both sides here for Jimmy Butler to say, I'll opt into that $52 million contract, say we go all the way to the offseason, there's still no trade for him, and at least you're getting something in return from me. The Sixers dealt with that with James Harden here, that they opted into the contract, or he opted into the contract, and then they had to trade him rather than allowing him to walk away in free agency. And while it was frustrating to stick with that point, that ultimately the Sixers did walk away and were a better organization because of it. They still have these draft picks from the Clippers. We got the level of play from Nico Batum, all these type of things. Now, to circle this back to Joel Embiid specifically, the Sixers showed no hesitation in extending him. He is sitting on a massive contract, still under contract for 4 more years following this season, and some significant figures there. You can see the numbers on the screen, but we're talking about some massive money, $60 million plus in the years moving forward. That has been the foregone conclusion, that you give the guy the contract and then you deal with it down the line. I think that is changing across the NBA, and there is always the quote of it's better to get a little bit of ahead of something than behind it as it pertains to when a player is falling down or really in life when there is something changing. It does feel like the Sixers might be a bit behind the 8 ball here. Now, I'm not saying you can get this massive return for Joel Embiid specifically, and these are conversations that we cannot even have until the offseason because he signed the extension this past offseason. That makes him ineligible for a full calendar year at that point. But look at the rest of the Sixers team, there are some movable contracts here. This was a pretty loud, launching point of the NBA trade deadline, which is, of course, on Thursday. We've gotten a lot of rumors regarding the De'Aaron Foxes, the Jimmy Butlers of the world. And while for the Sixers team, I still sit in the standpoint of you're probably better off sitting still and just seeing how this year goes, that does not mean they should not be involved in conversations. I think Daryl Morey should be working the phones absolutely right now. And if there are these type of massive deals going down, the Sixers should be trying to get involved. The Sixers should be trying to get involved here. And to kind of touch on that specifically, to pull up these trade details, that you can see a team like the Jazz being necessary to facilitate this trade and make this possible. Those are the kind of opportunities that the Sixers should be looking to get involved with. If you can add a couple assets or involves moving on from the Kelly Oubres or KJ Martins or Andre Drummonds or names like that the salary are necessary to making these deals go through, that is a way they can win this trade deadline without truly picking a direction. That you don't have to sell the farm and give up on the season. You also don't have to be locked in trying to compete for a championship this year. And I think it is fair to assess that those aspirations may be off the rails to this point. Now, I'm not fully calling this a lost year from a Sixers perspective, but I do think that this next week will be really telling. I'm still pretty blown away that this is a trade that even went down around the NBA. I do believe the Lakers deserve a slam dunk A+ grade for this deal, and the Mavericks right on the opposite end of that spectrum. But for the Sixers team and for the rest of the league, I do think this is going to cause some soul searching, some evaluation, and a little bit of a change in how we view our outlook on players moving forward. So drop your thoughts on this overall deal below. Let me know how you think it impacts the Sixers, if at all. If they did make a mistake kind of following the norm and just giving Joel that extension this past summer, as it does seem like we're finally starting to see some resistance around it around the league. So drop your thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video here. Once again, absolutely stunned that this deal went down. It took me so many times to read through it and actually believe it before it really sunk in, but ultimately we keep rocking here. So appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not. Drop a like on this video here, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.